Liz's Bookcase. I'm so excited to be here with you today, and we're going to review two more dishes from the cookbook Felidia by Lydia Bastianich. And so let's get to it. The first recipe that I cooked recently was the salmon with mustard sauce. Wow, let's talk about delicious. Let's talk about how we all need to be putting mustard sauce on basically all white meat. I could say it would go great with chicken or basically any type of fish. I think it would be delicious. So it was salmon, so it did give me the shake up. It was not my boring salmon that I'm used to with my boring soy sauce finisher. It was very easy to come together. The only substitution I had to make on this recipe was my grocery store did not have fish stock. I substituted seafood stock. It was perfect. I don't really think that it was a huge difference. The biggest difference is probably that I did have to buy a large amount of it, whereas I know that I've seen fish stock that comes in a smaller can, which might have been a little bit more appropriate and less wasteful for this recipe. So I'm going to try to freeze that fish, the seafood stock, and see if I can incorporate it maybe in a soup later. So that's my plan with that. The other dish that I cooked was the risotto with heirloom tomatoes and mozzarella and basil, buffalo mozzarella and basil, and it was also fabulous. I did not care for it as much as the salmon, and I do want to make a note that these two I would not normally pair together. The risotto, I think you could just serve it on its own or with maybe another like salmon topped with bruschetta or something like that, something that kind of coincided with the tomato. It was very like a red sauce type of thing. So imagine that. This specific recipe, now you could have definitely done a plain risotto where you just left out and you could have followed along with this exact recipe that she gives you and just leave out the tomatoes and stuff at the end there, and I think it would still be delicious with the salmon. But the risotto, I do not think it's the recipe's fault that I did not care for it as much. I would just like to say everything cooked perfectly, exactly on time, exactly the direction she gave us. But I did notice that I think the chicken broth, I have become a little bit snotty, and I think we should all be making our own homemade chicken broth. I just don't think that I like the chicken broth that I picked up. I have had better chicken broths. It did not give me that first impressions of smelling good, so I'm not blaming it on the recipe. I just think that I just want to be honest with you that these things can happen when you're cooking at home. And so I'd love to try this recipe again where I exchange the chicken broth and maybe either make my own or purchase one that I like better, more of my regular chicken broth that I normally get. I shouldn't have veered off track on that one. But let's see me cooking these recipes. And beside it we have the salmon with the mustard sauce, which I have covered. I was supposed to leave that off until the end, but it just looked too good. I just kept covering it. So, but it looks yummy. We're gonna eat it. Welcome back. Doesn't that look delicious? It was fabulous. We really enjoyed that dinner. Let's go over a few more of my kitchen notes. One thing I wanted to mention to you is the term mise en place. This is a term that chefs use, meaning everything in its place. And that means everything in its place before you start cooking. So you have all your onions chopped, you have all your ingredients measured out, you have all your things weighed, and usually what they'll do is put it on one sheet pan. And this is really a good practice. It's a good practice to even bring it home, because you don't get through half the recipe and say, I don't have enough butter or something along these lines. You can even line it up on your sheet pan by pre-reading the recipe and line up the first 3 ingredients that you're going to use first and the next 3 ingredients, that type of thing. So when you do start cooking, it is an enjoyable process. So try that out at home and let me know how it goes. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is, what is a risotto? Risotto is arborio rice that is sauteed in butter and onions. It is an Italian specialty dish. And then slowly, so you're sauteing that just in the butter and kind of toasting the rice. And then you slowly add in the broth. Whereas with most other rices, you start with broth, boil it, put in your rice after. So that's kind of the difference there. But you're slowly adding in this broth. And as you're doing that, you're constantly stirring it. You can kind of actually hear when you need to put in the next round of broth, because it'll just kind of make that little simmering sound. And then you'll continually stir it. And by doing this, you're kind of slowly breaking down those outer edges of the rice, and that's giving it the creamy effect that is so delicious. So that was a lot of fun, and I hope to try it at home. Try any risotto recipe. Let me know how it goes. It's really a fun thing to know and have in your back pocket, because it seems a lot fancier than it really is to pull off. So let's talk about my food journey this week. What have I done? If you have seen me, you have seen that on social media, I went and found 2 more of Felidia Bastianich's cookbooks at the library, and wow, I'm not crying, you're crying. It was fabulous. It just totally spoke to my heart and everything that I'm trying to do with this channel. She talks about sitting down at her grandmother's kitchen table, and that, woo, what a works. So I'm gonna let that go. And it was wonderful. So I check out some of these cookbooks, you guys. They're not just for recipes. They can be very inspiring in many different ways. Go to your local library. Do you even know that they have cookbooks? Have you checked them out before? Let me know about that. So we'll move on. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've been seeing a couple new subscribers. It's very exciting. And share my page to win this Felidia cookbook this month. And follow me on my other social media accounts to see the progress that I make through. That's kind of where I post when I go grocery shopping and how that's going and things like that. I'll get better about it, kind of giving more details on what's going on with me throughout the week. The other thing that I thought might be kind of fun for us to do is I wanted to see if you could guess what my next cookbook is, because I'm going to reveal that to you for the last Sunday of January will be when I do that reveal. So I'm gonna give you 2 clues, and I'd love to hear some of your comments down below of what you think it's gonna be. So the cookbook is navy blue, and it's a guy this time. So we had a lady this time. I am trying to do it kind of guy girl. We'll see how that goes, but so let me know who you think it might be. It's a celebrity chef that has been on a very popular network. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thanks again for tuning in. Find me on social media.